This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. Today's guest makes me feel old-fashioned. Or maybe she makes me want to drink an old-fashioned. Either way, I'm fortunate enough to have Stella Cole on the podcast. She blew up TikTok with her faithful renditions of the Great American Songbook. She tells me about how she became obsessed with old music and musicals from an early age, but she was always cautious about pursuing music as a career. Like when she was attending Northwestern University, she double majored in theater and international relations as a way of hedging her bets. She also minored in German, and she's not even sure why. But some bad experiences there really shook her confidence, and she stopped singing for quite a while. Then the pandemic hit, and she moved back home. That's when her dad suggested she record some videos of herself singing the music she loved. She chose TikTok because it was a new platform, and she figured none of her friends would be on it. Well, she now has over 1 million followers all over social media. She talks about her meteoric rise and how she's rebuilt her confidence, and she's on tour supporting her debut album, P.S. I Love You, and has recorded a Christmas album, Snow. Follow her at Stella K. Cole on socials. Go to stellacole.net and buy her album, P.S. I Love You, or her Christmas album. Follow us at Performance ANX on socials. Our merch is at performanceanx.threadless.com, and you can fuel us with coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Now let's step back in time with Stella Cole on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Of course. What am I supposed to be saying? Like, this is Stella Cole, Performance Anxiety, like that kind of thing? Okay, awesome. All right, let's try it. Hi, I'm Stella Cole on the Performance Anxiety Podcast. If you want to listen to my music, you can go to stellacole.net to stream my new album, this album that's coming out at the end of October, or you can buy my vinyl CD and merchandise. Thanks so much.
Let's do one more because as you said, Christmas, the volume just dropped out.
No. Okay, awesome. Once more from the top. My acting training coming in handy. All right. Hi, I'm Stella Cole on the Performance Anxiety Podcast. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. If you want to listen to my music, you can go to stellacole.net to stream my self-titled debut album or my Christmas album, which is coming out at the end of October. Or you can buy my merchandise, t-shirt with my face on them, stellacole.net or Stella K. Cole on all social media platforms. Great. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Oh, it's so wonderful to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I have my background blur on, which I don't need.
You know, I did get a chance to see the show in Alexandria, Virginia at the Birchmere, and it was stellar. Oh, I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you so much. That's very nice. Very kind.
I like to start off kind of chronologically. So I usually start off finding out how each guest got into music, and it usually involves family members. So I wanted to find out, because you're so unique, your genre, what you do is so different from 99.9% of the other people I've had on this podcast. I'm really interested to find out what you grew up on, what really stuck with you as a kid, what made you want to sing standards, and what drew you to the Great American Songbook as a kid.
Yeah, people ask me that a lot. I might have mentioned this in my show, but people get very confused that I'm 25 when I tell them that, because they assume I must be at least in my mid 30s. My voice sounds old, and I'm singing all this music written 70 years before I was born. So yeah, I get that question a lot. I discovered this music for the first time, I guess, when I watched The Wizard of Oz when I was 3 years old. My parents put it on for me, and I don't remember it, I was only 3, but they tell me that I was absolutely in a trance from it, immediately obsessed. I loved it. I sat completely still the whole movie and didn't say a word, didn't ask any questions. I just fell in love at 3, I think, and I begged to watch that movie every single day for the rest of that year. And I had a Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz costume. I had a costume to dress up like the Wicked Witch of the West. My birthday was Wizard of Oz themed. I was obsessed. And then I moved on to Mary Poppins after that, I believe. And I watched that every day for a year. I have a very obsessive, I've had a very obsessive personality when it comes to this kind of stuff since I was 3, apparently. So I was raised on old movie musicals, The Sound of Music and Meet Me in St. Louis, Singing in the Rain. My parents just kept showing me more and more movies as time went on because they were probably getting tired of watching the same ones over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, this was just my childhood. I could sort of memorize full songs before I could read or anything. I was doing singing performances in my living room from a very young age, 3 or 4. So wow. I think it was always in me somewhere. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Was that something that your parents were into, those older movies or those songs, or was it just something that they thought was okay for a little kid to watch? So, what's the harm?
I think it was age appropriate, and they had seen The Wizard of Oz. It was on TV once a year when they were growing up. They'd seen these movies, but they weren't obsessed with them. Right. Now they are, I think, because they've seen them so many times and they have such sentimental and joyful memories associated with them from my childhood for both my parents and for me. But I think they didn't expect me to be obsessed as I was. Wasn't surprised though.
So you were singing and performing for family as a young kid. When did that kind of expand? I mean, were you doing plays and things in school, or were you performing outside of school growing up?
Yeah, I grew up in Springfield, Illinois, which has actually a very vibrant community theater scene, especially for being such a small city. Okay. It's 100,000 or 150,000 people maybe, but they do so many plays and musicals. So I started auditioning for those when I was in the 1st grade, I think, very young.
Oh, wow.
And I actually would always audition and not get called back, or I'd get called back and I wouldn't get into the shows. It was very competitive, Springfield, Illinois community theater. Yeah, hilarious. And I think broke my parents' heart, seeing this kid get rejected, a very intense thing. So that prepared them to watch their daughter have a career in show business and entertainment. Anyway, but I think that was an amazing outlet. Once I did start getting into the musicals in my community, that was all I did after school. I mean, I was a student athlete too, eventually, but I would go to cross country and then go straight to my rehearsal for a musical or a play or a short film I was doing. I was always in something in my community.
Nothing like, running, getting out of breath and then going to perform.
Yeah, exactly. So sweaty from cross country, straight to rehearsal. Awesome. But yeah, theater was a really big part of my life growing up. And I was such a fan of theater. I lived a long way from New York, from Broadway, but I watched so many YouTube videos and was so obsessed with people who I've now had the opportunity to meet and sing with. And it's very insane to think about how obsessed I was with the whole New York Broadway scene growing up. It's adorable.
That's awesome though. But it sounds like, you found what you liked and you pursued it.
Yeah, I was very consistent. I think I had a lot of doubts. Eventually started having a lot of doubts in high school when, you're trying to decide what college to go to, and it became a real possibility of, do I want to pursue this as a career? And I became very insecure for a while. I really wasn't sure about going to college for theater or for music, but my parents were actually very encouraging and very supportive. They always really encouraged me. I made really good grades. I liked school a lot. I did well in school all throughout my life, and I was always saying maybe I should be a lawyer or a doctor or go to law school or do something that's a sure path. And they were like, no, be a singer, which I think is the opposite of what most parents tell their kids. So they're not musical at all, but they saw that passion in me from such a young age, and I've always been so supportive.
That is amazing. Like you said, that is kind of the opposite route that most parents would take. Hey, here's something that you're passionate about, but it's not stable, it's not steady. Why don't you're smart enough to become a lawyer or a doctor? Why don't we go that route? But that's wonderful because they could tell where your passion was and they encouraged you. So, good for your parents. I think that's amazing.
They're the best. So I love them.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Did you take musical lessons or singing or instrument lessons as you were growing up, or was this just natural talent
I did.
up to this point?
Yeah, I took singing lessons. I started in them pretty young. I remember my mom trying to lie to the voice teacher that I was a year older than I was or something. Like I was going to turn that age in like 3 months. So she was like, it's fine, we'll just fudge it. And apparently I was in the background being like, I'm not that age, I'm this age, like don't lie. So I think we got into voice lessons pretty young with, local voice teachers in Springfield. My voice teacher, Sue Hamilton, was my voice teacher growing up, and then continued into college. And now I've been trying. I don't know how far ahead you want to skip. I know you want to go in chronological order, so I don't want to skip too far ahead.
So I guess the next thing I'm really curious about is, was there a moment, you mentioned going to college and you went to Northwestern to study theater. Was there a moment that light switch flipped and you said, this is something that I want to pursue? I know you did say, you did lose some confidence at one point, but was there a moment or was it just something you always knew?
I always knew I loved it more than anything and wanted to do it more than anything. I think I'm a pretty big perfectionist, so I was always so scared to pursue something that I wasn't sure. I was always so scared to take that risk and take the leap that it takes.
Yeah.
I remember watching musical theater videos or listening to musical theater stuff in high school, and it would make me emotional sometimes and make me cry because I would think to myself, like, what if I don't get to do this someday? That would be so like
Wow.
I have very specific memories of that at like the age of 16 or 17. And I went to Northwestern, like you said, outside of Chicago, and I decided to double major in international relations, which I saw as sort of like a pre-law track. And then my other major was theater, and I was also in the musical theater program. So I was sort of doing, and I minored in German, which was just random. No, I don't know why. Kind of unhelpful. Just, who knows what I was doing. But
I think I can. I feel a new project coming on for you. Maybe taking the Great American Standards and translating them into German.
That's hilarious. Nobody wants to hear that. Maybe they do, but my horrible German translations don't do that. So in college, I was sort of on those two paths. It felt like keeping my options open for both of them. But I actually, in college, lost a lot of confidence, I think, coming from, a smaller city in the Midwest and being in this theater program that was largely people from like the coasts who had like grown up going to Broadway shows every 2 weeks or grown up in the film scene in LA. And like, they just seemed like they knew so much more about the industry. Broadway had never seemed real to me. That just seemed like this thing that existed like far away in dreamland or something. So I was a little bit intimidated, honestly, when I got to school. Everyone had these like pre-professional Broadway programs. I just felt behind. And I think that, plus an experience that I had with a teacher there, a sort of negative experience I had with a voice teacher there who sort of made me feel like I was singing in the wrong way, and that, the Great American Songbook stuff really wasn't what I needed to learn and focus on, and that I needed to try to be more of a modern singer, whatever that means. I think the combination of that experience and feeling behind left me, again, in a period of insecurity. It's like I wanted it so bad that I was so scared of failing, and that caused me to just quit altogether. So I quit singing for a couple of years in college and was always just like, imagine me. I have to do this singing thing for my musical theater class? Like, how hilarious. I'm so bad at singing. I sort of made a joke out of it, out of insecurity. Yeah. So I think the point, this is the longest answer in the world. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
You can tell I've been in a van for 7 hours today. I'm like, anyway, tour life, we love it.
Right.
But the point where I really decided to pursue it didn't come until the pandemic, when I was a junior in college and I moved home, and I was listening to this Doris Day interview one day, and I just started to get emotional. I started to sort of cry so hard that I had to I was in the car and I had to pull my car over.
Oh, wow.
Because I remembered, oh my God, I love this music. Why am I not singing? Why am I not doing this? I can do this. I know that I can do this. So yeah, that was a very transformational period for me, the COVID lockdown.
Right. And that's when things really started to take off for you. I mean, and if I read this accurately, it wasn't even really your idea to start posting videos on social media of you singing.
Yeah, it wasn't my idea. It was my dad gets all the credit. I know, thank God for him. I was on a walk with my dad one day, and I had been watching all the old movie musicals, my comfort movies, and once again crying because I missed music in my life so much. And I was talking to my dad about it. He was like, you're so talented. I feel like your school never appreciated you. Like, people just haven't been able to see what you can do. Like, you just need to start posting some singing videos on YouTube. And yeah, at the time I remember saying to my dad, that would be embarrassing. I'm not going to do that. That what if my friends from school saw that I was playing, that would be embarrassing. But there was this newer app called TikTok, and I didn't think any of my friends really had it yet. So that's where I decided to start posting videos, and here we are now, I guess. Wow.
Yeah, and it's TikTok has obviously blown up, as have you. What was the first video that you posted?
My first video, I was singing. I was in the bathroom of my parents' house, and I was wearing a bathrobe, and I had a face mask on, this white face mask. I think I just gotten out of the shower 20 minutes ago, hair wet. And I just started singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I was like, whatever, I'll just try this. And I think the caption was I hope my friends never see this. And I mean, I think probably 100 people saw that, but 100 people seeing it felt like so many, and 4 strangers commenting. I was like, what? People think I have a pretty voice? That's crazy. What does that even mean? So I kept doing it, and it kept growing, and it became sort of a fun little hobby for me and my family while we had literally nothing else to do. Just watching my TikTok viewers grow from 100 to 100,000. It was an insane time.
That's incredible. You've gathered some pretty influential followers. And I know one of the turning points was James Taylor reposted one of your videos. That had to be insane.
It was insane. I was so excited that I was alone in our kitchen when I saw the notification that James Taylor had just reposted my video. And I screamed at the top of my lungs. I was so excited. My parents came up and they were like, what is wrong? Is the house on fire? I was like, no, all good. Something even crazier than that is happening, which is that James Taylor, what? It was just so inconceivable at the time, especially because as all of these celebrities and people I had admired my whole life were commenting on my videos. I mean, nothing about my life was changing at all. I was just in my parents' house, kind of in the middle of the woods, with my brother and my dog. I wasn't, nothing was changing. It just felt it felt like this fake little world on my phone. And it still feels like that sometimes, honestly, though my life has changed a lot in real life too. But yeah.
So when did that happen? Was it during the pandemic, or was it after things started opening up, or?
No, that was during COVID. That was pretty early on into the pandemic. I maybe had 60,000 followers or something, I think. At that, yeah, he was so wonderful though. He reposted me a lot of times and was tagging his record label and tagging his producers and stuff. He was such a generous, wonderful thing of him to do.
That is incredible. And I know I stumbled upon you through Instagram, just in my feed somehow. I don't even know how. So I guess my next question is, have you been in contact with James at all? And has he explained, did he tell you how he found you?
He has not told me. I have not been in contact with him. I was able to do some work with one of his producers, and I've worked with a couple people now who have worked with him. But no, I mean, he's such a legend. I think I sent him a DM saying thank you, and he liked it or something. But I feel like it would be so presumptuous of me to think that James Taylor wanted to spend any time talking to me like it's James Taylor. I'm so intimidated by that. So yeah, I haven't really pursued trying to talk to him, but like, oh my gosh, singing with James Taylor in real life or opening for him or something, that would be such a dream manifest for me.
And now that led to, I think, your first studio experience, and it wasn't what you're doing now though. It was more original stuff with your college roommate, right?
Yes, yeah, with my college roommate, my friend Emma. Yeah, I think, I was trying something new at that time. It had never occurred to me that I could be a recording artist. I didn't really know what that meant or what that could look like. I sort of didn't know that like modern singers today, like still sang standards. So I was like, okay, like I'll be a singer, I guess, like we'll write some songs. And in the end, that project ended up not really feeling as authentic as the stuff that I'm doing now to me and like to my artistic vision. Yeah. I'm very glad that I did it and definitely experimented with like some different vocal styles, and Emma's writing was so great. But yeah, I think we both sort of decided to go in different directions, and I'm very glad that I've gone on the path that I did. I sort of that while we were making that project, right after the project was made, I officially moved to New York and I sort of discovered the jazz scene there, which was such an insane discovery. I remember the first time I was at a jam session and there were all these like people my age, like other 22, 23-year-olds singing the Great American Songbook. And I was just like, wait, where am I? I didn't know this existed. Like I didn't know this was still a thing. Yeah, with that discovery, I realized I could sort of go on this path that I'm on now. I realized that this is a career. So
we're in New York City right now, but what was it that brought you your confidence back? Because you mentioned that you had kind of lost it a bit, and then we kind of jumped into TikTok, but I never found out exactly what it was that helped you get your confidence back.
I think honestly, it was during the lockdown, during the pandemic. It was being away from. I was sort of removed from my community. A lot of my friends had stayed at college and were still living in their dorms, living in their apartments. And for the first time in so long, I wasn't being influenced by like what anyone else wanted me to do or what anyone else thought was cool. I was just left to my own thoughts and spending more time alone than ever before. And I think I really got back in touch with myself around that time and realized like, this is what I love. And even if other people didn't think it was cool or didn't think it was relevant, like I want to follow this. I want to do this thing and I'm going to post about it on the internet, and like people seem to like it. And yeah, I think singing those songs and having people respond to it gave me a lot of confidence. But it's definitely been a journey, the confidence thing. I mean, when I was working on that pop project, like at that time I had sort of, I think, once again, lost some confidence that people wanted to listen to me sing jazz standards. I was sort of like, oh, well, maybe I have to do this pop thing to like have an audience, which is silly because I had an audience already on TikTok. But, it's definitely been an ebb and flow thing. I think that's true for all artists and confidence in their art. And I feel like in the last year and a half, I've done a lot of growing up in a lot of ways. But one of those ways is just being like absolutely sure of what I'm doing and that this is the right thing and that I just love this music so much. There's nothing I love more.
It's amazing.
So, yeah, that's sort of the journey.
And you've got to try some of these other things to find out what you really want to do. So I did get a chance to hear a couple of the songs and I like them. I think they're really good. But I think what you're doing now is what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are really good songs. That's what I was saying. But yeah, I think it just wasn't the right fit for me just because it didn't feel authentic. And I think part of what people connect to about my music and about my videos online is like, people are always like, you look so happy while singing these songs. And I'm like, I am so happy. I love them. Like, you saw the show. Like, that, nothing makes me happier than doing those shows with my band. Like, I love it so much. It's my favorite thing. We're having such fun. And I've never felt that way about anything else or any other style of music, I don't think. So
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So when you decided to move to New York, was it to pursue singing, or was it to pursue theater, or were you just going there and just to see what happened?
That had always been my plan, to move to New York. It had always been my dream. When I was 14 and 15, I had a big poster in New York City on the wall of my bedroom, and another big poster that had like the Broadway street sign. You know, that was my big dream always. So I think I just went saying, okay, let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens. Took me a while to find my footing, I think, but yeah, now I'm absolutely in love with New York, and I think I'll be there for quite a while, I hope.
What you're singing to me sounds like New York. I grew up in New Jersey, and we'd go into New York, and that was really the only time I would hear standards and the Great American Songbook and jazz, because we would go into New York and we'd hear it in the restaurants or the stores we would go into. There's just something New York about that specific style of jazz. It's just, and so I think that's one reason why your music touches me, is because it reminds me of being a kid and going into New York and hearing this music that I wouldn't hear anywhere else. And it brings back some really awesome memories. So
yeah, it brings back memories for a lot of people, me included. I think that's part of why this music is so special. It's been around for quite a while now, and we all have very sentimental associations with it, I think, which comes up.
Absolutely. And I think people hear a lot of this music and don't realize that they've heard it before. You know, maybe in old movies that you would watch as a kid or something, and then when they hear you doing it, I'm like, that is so familiar. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're exploding as much as you are, because you're being true to the music, and your voice perfectly suits that music. It's an amazing match, and you're not trying to modernize the music, really. You're being true to it, and I think that really shines through.
I appreciate that. I've always been I've always been that way. When I hear like poppier covers of jazz standards, I'm usually like, okay, like cool. That's not what I would want to do with the song. I just think it's perfect. It's kind of perfect the way it sounded back then, and it's great to do a fresh version. You know, the piano, the band is going to be different every time. You can do new orchestral arrangements, but I just don't think it has to be like the modernized version of it is very cool, and I respect it a lot musically, but I think there's also something to be said for letting the music be what it is and what it was when, Nat King Cole was singing it. That's still really good today. So
yeah, it's not called the Great American Songbook for nothing.
Yeah, still really great. Yeah. Even.
It was great. It was great. It's right in there.
Yeah, you're so right.
So what kind of work were you doing in New York while you're singing? And are you, I guess I kind of want to find out what your life was like while your early days in New York.
Yeah. Well, I was living in the smallest apartment in the world. It often goes. My room wasn't even a real room. We lived in a railroad apartment. So, for people who are listening who don't know, that means like you can walk. You have to get from one room to the other. Like it's all laid out like on a railroad. So my room was the hallway basically, and you had to walk through my room to like any other room. It was so crazy. I don't know how I did that, but that was part of it. It was not so glamorous. I was walking dogs. That was my job, because I was looking for a job that would like pay for my very low living expenses. So I just like walked dogs part-time, and then like did TikTok and music stuff part-time as well. Okay. And sort of split my time between those two things. I was a terrible dog walker. I lost someone's keys once. It was not my thing. I really was not good at it. I'm being honest today, because I've been in a car for 7 hours, so I have no filter. Right. And I was a horrible dog walker. But I remember I didn't get my first gig in New York until like 9 months or so, 8 or 9 months into moving there.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I didn't really know the jazz scene existed until maybe like 6 or 7 months after I moved. I was sort of,
okay.
Yeah, finishing up that pop project and while I was there, the way I got my first gig, I remember walking around. I would take lots of walks around New York, being a dog walker and all.
Yeah.
And I would see people playing. I would see jazz trios or singers at like hotels or hear them outside of restaurants. And I was like, surely I could do that. So I was like looking for restaurants with hotel gigs and sending just hundreds of emails and Instagram DMs to like every hotel and restaurant I could think of, even some that didn't have music. I was like, have you ever considered having a singer? Maybe you should. And I was doing so much outreach until I got my first gig at this Brooklyn restaurant called Giovanni's Brooklyn Eats. Still very good friends with Giovanni to this day. Yeah, that's sort of how it started out. And it was a funny year. It was a funny first year living in New York. It always takes a little while to get your bearings, but I remember being paid so little money to sing in a lot of restaurants and stuff, but just making any money at all, for singing was the most thrilling thing in the world.
Oh yeah, that was your dream.
Mm-hmm. That was the dream. It is the dream, honestly. Making money from music, like that's the dream, truly.
As you're posting these videos and you're playing in restaurants and bars, are you getting people in the audience recognizing you from TikTok? And as your videos are getting more popular, does that audience grow in your live shows?
Yes, it was honestly so funny because like my TikTok, at this point, I probably had like 300,000 followers on TikTok, something like that. Wow. And so I'd go to these restaurants and they'd be like, well, can you get some people in here? I was like, I think I can try. And so people come to my gigs at these restaurants where like everyone was talking over me. You couldn't hear a thing.
Oh, geez.
People would fly from other countries to see me sing. Like this family flew from the UK once, and this guy was like, yeah, we came because we wanted to see your show. I was like, I'm singing at a bar. What are you talking about? I was singing at this steak restaurant. This guy flew from Israel. I was like, you're out of your mind.
Oh my God.
It was insane. I was like, this is a restaurant gig. Like, I'm getting $75 for 3 hours of singing. Like, but people are flying from Europe. Like, weird. So
you spent 10 times that on plane tickets.
I know. I was like, man, what? It was a very odd feeling.
Wow.
But yeah, people definitely were coming to my little gigs. It was hilarious. Packing the restaurants full.
Well, I bet you they were happy.
Yeah, they certainly were.
So when did the idea come about to start working on an album of standards and the Great American Songbook?
Yeah, well, as I was getting these restaurant gigs, I started getting to know the musicians who would play with me at these gigs. And I actually met some of my best friends today and some of my favorite musicians in New York today through Instagram, seeing them. Like, I would be stalking Instagrams of coffee shops and restaurants being like, do they have music? And I would see musicians playing, and if I thought they sounded good, I would DM them and be like, hey, I'm just love to hang out or come to your gig or whatever. So I think I was just meeting so many musicians at the time. And my first year when I moved to New York, I was listening to Samara Joy a lot because she was the only person I knew of. She had just released her first album, I think. Her like album that won 2 Grammys wasn't out yet, but I discovered her pretty early on, and I would go see her sing at this tiny club called Mesro that only fits like maybe 40 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I sort of was listening to her record and checking her out. I was like, okay, she's another young singer who's doing sort of, something similar to what I want to be doing. Yeah. And so I looked up who made Samara's album, and it was this guy, Matt Pearson, who is now my manager and my producer. But at the time I was like, okay, he's worked with like 5 of my friends and Samara. And so like, well, I'll just email him and see what happens. So I sent him an email being like, hey, my name is Stella. I'm a singer in New York. What do you say about producing my album? And he was like, yeah, you sound good. Like, let's talk more. So we went on Zoom, and he really helped me get the album going. Yeah, we recorded it last summer. So over a year ago now.
How did you pick the songs that you perform on the album? There's so many to choose from, and you've done so many videos. How do you kind of narrow that down? Was it all you, or was that the 2 of you together?
Before I connected with Matt, I was trying to like make my own album without a producer, which thank God I didn't do that. I was trying, the track list was impossible for me. I'm a perfectionist, as I've said. Yeah. And I Even once Matt was on board, I would say we went back and forth for about 6 months on the track, maybe more. I could not choose for the life of me. I sort of wanted to make like 4 different records at the same time all on one record. And it was really helpful. Wow. Matt was very helpful to be like, look, chill out. You have a whole career ahead of you. Like, which record do you want to make right now? And I think I was inclined to put like all the greatest hits I sang on the album, or like, all these iconic songs. And Matt was very helpful in talking to me about, finding some songs that people wouldn't know that I could really make my own. Like, if you're just going to sing Happy Days Are Here Again on a record, like, you really want to do that? Like, Barbra Streisand's version already exists on a record, actually, and we talked about that with Over the Rainbow too. He was like, if you're going to sing this song, you have to make it your own. Like, you can't be a Judy Garland impersonator. I was like, I think I can make that song my own. And I think I did, put out a different version of it, certainly.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I've heard of once in a lullaby.
And you see, that's the amazing thing. 'Cause now to me, that shows the confidence that you've got. I love it.
Yeah, it's been great. It's honestly, I've been so happy lately, so thrilled with the confidence that I kind of finally have. It's taken me some years to figure it out, but this 2024 has been a year of a lot of self-growth in a lot of ways, like I said, and confidence has certainly come with all of that. Thank goodness.
That's amazing. And I just love this album. It's got so much amazing stuff on it. Like, well, I love, your version of Moon River, which I believe when you would do live streams, you would end with that, right?
Yes, I would. It's very sentimental. And it's the video that James Taylor reposted first, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so very special song.
We're after the same rainbow's end, waiting round the bend, my huckleberry friend, Moon River and me.
And there's certain songs that you did in the show that I love, like Love is a Tender Trap. And the thing that I love about that is, that song was written a long time ago, because something happens in the lyrics that doesn't happen anymore. It's not that I've noticed, because in the lyrics, the song rhymes a word with a sound effect. So your heart goes whap, you're caught in the tender trap.
You're hand in hand beneath the trees, and soon there's music in the breeze. You're acting kind of smart until your heart just goes whap. Those trees, that breeze, they're part of the tender trap. Some starry night when his kisses make you tingle, he'll hold you tight.
It's hilarious. I love it. It's classic, such hilarious lyrics. I love songs like that, or like songs like Cole Porter, Anything Goes. Like, what a ridiculous song, but it's so fun.
Yes. I think that's one thing that's lost on a lot of people, is the humor in a lot of these songs.
Yeah, absolutely. They're so funny. It's they're ridiculous too. The Tender Trap was a very last minute addition. With a lot of these songs, I ended up choosing them because they were songs that I had at some point been obsessed with. Like I mentioned, obsessive personality. So, for example, Detour Ahead. Like, there was a month of my life where that's literally the only song I was listening to. I would just listen to Ella Fitzgerald's version of that over and over and over. Like, obsessed.
Smooth road, clear day, then why am I the only one traveling this way? How strange the road to love should be so easy. Can't you see the detour ahead? Wake up, slow down.
And I felt that way about most of the songs on this album. In like a month we were going to be in the studio, I was feeling that way about The Tender Trap. And I texted Matt like 2 weeks into this obsessive phase, and I was like, I think we got to put this one on the record. So yeah, I'm really glad we ended up adding that one.
I think it's great. It's one of my favorites on the album. And one of the other interesting things is it's not all standards. You cover Billie Eilish on the album,
Yeah.
My Future.
Do you understand? I've changed my plans, 'cause I'm in love with my future. Can't wait to meet her. And I'm in love, but not with anybody else. Just wanna get to know myself.
I think I like the live version, maybe even more than the album version. I thought you did such a great job on that.
Yeah, I think the live version of My Future has become its own sort of thing. My pianist dash, sort of music director, his name is Michael Kanan, the most wonderful man on earth in every way. And my whole band is so wonderful. And so we sort of, throughout touring that song and doing it in a lot of shows, have come up with our own little twist on it. So it's nice to have a lot of different versions of it. I think it's like a standard in that way. It's a very versatile song. You can do it a lot of ways.
So do you listen to a lot of pop, and do you think about transforming newer songs into older jazz style versions? Because you've also done the Miley Cyrus's Flowers.
We were good, we were gold, kind of dream that can't be sold. We were right till we weren't, built a home and watched it burn. I didn't want to leave you, I didn't want to fight, started to cry, then remembered I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours.
I was going to say, I worked with Postmodern Jukebox. I made 2 videos with Scott Bradley and that band, and I went on a 6-week tour about 2 years ago now with them, and I toured Australia and New Zealand with them last summer. So I did a lot of the pop song into jazz standard thing, and I think that's really fun, and there's a huge audience for that. But I think most of the time I'd rather sing a standard, honestly. I just think when pop songs were the only songs I was singing, like being on tour with them, I would have to go back to my hotel room and like sing some standard. Like I just missed, I missed the music. The writing is just different. Like the depth of those songs. And I'm not saying that modern songs don't have depth. Of course, so many of them do. There's so much amazing modern music, but something about the standards is just like, for me personally, always connected more. So My Future was one that Matt suggested, and I was very hesitant to try it out at first, but I have actually always been a fan of Billie Eilish. I know most of her music, and so yeah, I'm really glad we ended up putting it on there.
I think it's amazing. And I don't want to say it doesn't break up the album, because it fits right in there, but it's just something you're like, oh wait, that's a little different.
Yeah.
When you did this live, one of the things I loved about the show was that you talk about the songs before you perform them. You kind of explain what they mean to you, or a little bit about the history of the song, like On the Street Where You Live, where if you write this today, maybe it's a little creepy, but
exactly, put it in a modern context.
Yeah, think of it about when the time it was written.
Exactly. No, I always think about that with the Tender Trap too, actually, because, you know, that was written, I don't know if it was written for Sinatra. I'm pretty sure it was, but, you know, written for a male singer to be sort of like, watch out for those women. Like, they'll trap you into relationships. And it sort of makes no sense, like, in the modern dating world, like, for a woman to be seeing it like, oh, men are going to trap you into marriage. Like, that's certainly not what anyone's trying to do these days. So it doesn't actually make sense at all, but I just think it's a funny song regardless. So yeah, I think it's important to put them into a modern context sometimes for people who aren't used to hearing this music.
Yeah, and the show you did it with I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face, which I thought was one of the highlights of the show. I love that. I'm kind of gushing a little bit, but I really enjoyed that show because it was what I imagined going to a jazz club in New York in like the 40s and 50s would have been like. And I see that in a lot of movies and a lot of maybe old TV shows. You just kind of see the atmosphere in these clubs, and you're like, man, that just looks so cool and so much fun. And you were able to do it at the Birchmere, you know, for sure. And it just made the show really unique and one of my favorites that I've seen this year.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I'm sure you see a lot of music, so thank you for saying that.
Oh,
yeah.
I do. I shoot a lot of concerts in the DC area, so yeah. And this was one of the most unique ones that I've seen maybe ever, because I don't get to see a lot of jazz. So
yeah,
and I brought my son, so he loved it, and it's kind of funny because, and then he'll kill me if he hears this. Ever since that show, he's kind of changed a few things. Like,
really,
it's so funny because he came home. We talked about how great the show was on the ride home, and because it was from the venue to my house, it's probably like an hour and 20 minutes or so. So we had a good long chat, and he's 20, so we were just chatting. And ever since that, he's really taking more pride in his appearance, and it sounds weird, but what I'm saying is that we went out and he bought like a blazer and some nice slacks. And
I love it. He's getting classy. I love it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's coincidental or if something clicked with him in the show, but because, I mean, you were dressed to the nines, the band looked amazing.
The band and the suits, they all looked too handsome. He was influenced.
I think he may have been. And ever since then, he's really just kind of thinking more about how he presents himself, I think. And I love it. If it's because of you, thank you.
Well, you're welcome, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you saying all that. I think a compliment that my pianist, Michael, gave me once. We on a lot of long car rides together. We talk a lot. He's one of my closest friends now. But he told me that I've never forgotten this compliment. He was talking about how, I just sing the songs sort of how they're written, and I sing them, and I don't do anything particularly like showy, I guess. Like there's no like, wow, jazz hands element of it, and it's just sort of like it's meant to be a sort of peaceful, relaxing jazz club experience. And I'm glad to hear that you connect with that, because again, with the insecurity, something I've been insecure about in the past, like especially when I've been on tours with other singers who are maybe a little bit more like showy than me, or like have sort of tricks they do with the crowd and stuff like that. I can become a little bit like, oh, should I be doing more? But I think, anyway, it really means a lot to hear that you connected and felt relaxed, and the classy old New York jazz vibe is just what I'm trying to create for people. So I'm so glad to hear it.
I really did love talking about the songs before and kind of explaining a little bit. I think for a younger audience, I think that is really important. So if it means anything, keep doing it. Keep doing that, because
I will.
I think that is it's wonderful. I learned things about songs that I didn't know about. So I don't know if you may not realize it. I don't know, but I thought it was a very, very important part of the show.
Yeah, I feel that way. I feel like in the last year or so, I've gotten more comfortable, like really being myself on stage and showing my full personality. You know, I'm a little bit silly on stage sometimes, and like I'm just like that in real life. So I think that has translated well so far. And yeah, young people like this music. Like once they hear it, a lot of the time they love it. Like I think craving the like nostalgic, relaxing, comforting stuff, like this stuff is cool again, actually, surprisingly enough. It wasn't when I was growing up, but
Yeah, I know.
it's cool again. There was a group of girls, I'm on tour right now, like I mentioned, and a group of high school girls came to my show a few nights ago, and they were all dressed in like floor-length gowns. They were like, "We dressed like you," and these like
awesome.
These 3 high school jazz musicians came to the show the next night, and they all bought like t-shirts with my face on them. And I was like, this is awesome. Just seeing like people even younger than me, like 10 years younger than me, you know, connecting to it is such a great feeling. So,
Well,
yeah.
It's been a couple of, I'd say about 2 weeks since you were in Alexandria. And since my son and I went out, and he picked up some Chet Baker albums, some Herb Alpert. I went and got a couple Dave Brubeck albums that I had been missing. So.
Oh my gosh, this is my goal, my dream. That's it. It's the dream. Yeah. That's all I need. Introducing people to the music. That is seriously the goal. So awesome.
Well, I think sometimes all I need is a little kickstart to get back into things, and seeing you perform is like, you know what? I really like jazz. I really like older jazz too. I mean, Dave Brubeck, you know, he's classic, but it made me remember, hey, like you said after listening to that interview, I really like this stuff. Why don't I have this? Why am I not listening to this?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great that I can provide that little kickback. I'm so glad.
And you're currently on tour, right? And what's in the future for you? What's the future hold for Stella Cole?
Well, right now I'm in the first week. Well, I guess 2 weeks ago I was on tour as a shorter tour, just like a week. But we just finished week 1 of a 9-week tour, 6 weeks in the US and 3 weeks in Europe. And then I'm doing another 2 weeks in December for Christmas time, because I have a Christmas project coming out. By the time this podcast is on the internet, it might already be out even. It's coming out at the end of October. So I'm so excited about that. We recorded it in New York with 12 string players who were doubling the strings, so it sounds like this gorgeous big lush like string, or it's literally the Christmas album of my dreams. I'm thrilled with it. Alan Broadbent did the arrangements again. He arranged the orchestra on my other album, and yeah, I think people are gonna love it. I've been losing my mind over it, and I am very critical of my own work, so if I like it, surely then people are gonna love it.
Absolutely. And what you do just lends itself to Christmas albums, because
come on,
that's what a lot of those guys did. I mean, they would tour and then they would just have these amazing Christmas albums that became instant classics.
Exactly. I hear a lot of musicians who are like, oh, like December gigs, like, oh, okay, we got to sing White Christmas. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I can't wait to sing White Christmas. Like, I love Christmas. It's so fun.
Oh man.
I'm so genuine. It hurts. God, what's the word? I'm so like, I don't know. Like, anyway.
You're the opposite of jaded.
I'm hilarious. Yeah, exactly. I'm so unjaded, whatever the word is for unjaded.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah, I'm very excited.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, how can people find your album and follow, if they don't know already, how do they follow you on social media and keep track of your music releases and your tours?
Yeah, well, I'm Stella K. Cole on all platforms, or if you look up Stella Cole Moon River Cup on any streaming platform, and then that'll lead you to the whole album, or my website, stellacole.net. Got to put my commercial voice on, stellacole.net, is where you can find vinyl and CD, and if you want a t-shirt with my face on it, you can find that there too. Awesome. So, yeah, I think that's about it. The Christmas record will be out soon. Oh, Stella Cole Snow. I can't wait.
Oh, it's awesome. I love that. I love it. That's classic.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, thank you for spending a chunk of your evening with me while you're on tour. I know it's grueling, you're traveling all day long, and to just hop on and talk to me for an hour, it means a lot, and I really do appreciate it.
This was very refreshing, honestly. I was feeling pretty exhausted 5 minutes before this interview started, but it's always nice. I think you can get into like the routine of like being on the road and, you know, being like, oh, that was a long car ride. But it's always so nice to look back and be like, listen, I'm making a living from music here. That is the dream. Like, it's of course normal to be tired, but I'm always so grateful. But it's just nice to be reminded of that, of how excited I would have been 3 years ago if you told me this was going to be my life now. So no, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I have often walked down this street before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before. All at once am I several stories high, knowing I'm on the street where you live. Are there lilac trees in the heart of town? Can you hear a lark in that